let's start off with BBF and WFA, excuse me. So how do we ensure that the standards are available to everybody? Is it you have to join? Can I go and reference them even if I'm just investigating? If I wanted to look at, let's say, newer standards that are in draft form, is that something that is only available to a certain subset of customers, or how does that work? Who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
Okay.
So first of all, thank you, Purple, for inviting the Wi-Fi Alliance to your summit. Happy to be here. Wi-Fi Alliance and the Broadband Forum have a long-standing relationship. And with respect to working together on these standards, and I mean, we are a certification organization. We leverage the 802.11 protocol or standard, and we are successful because in the Wi-Fi Alliance, we don't wait for the standard to necessarily be ratified, but we develop ahead of the standard. And in many cases, because we have such a large organization of 900 members, we are able to innovate new solutions in conjunction with working with other organizations and working with the industry and deliver on optimal Wi-Fi experiences.
Cool.
So thanks for that, yes. So from a Broadband Forum perspective, when we finalize a standard, we publish it. It's available to absolutely everyone on the public domain. So that's available to everyone. When you, John, when you were mentioning about ongoing work, new standards in process, that is available just to the membership. We have different membership levels so that auditing members can see everything that's going on, but if you want to be contributing and developing and voting on standards that are in development, that's part of our principal members.
All right.
It's only until they're published is it out in the public domain.
Gotcha. All right. So with these vendors that are members and developing these new standards, is it just whoever publishes first? Is there a peer review? And let me change this up. Let's go with Tobin and Maureen. We'll go with you as well.
So what's your question exactly? How does the process of developing the standard work?
Yeah.
Yeah, so probably very similar in all of our organizations. I won't speak for our colleagues up here, but effectively, especially in the Connectivity Standards Alliance, we set kind of a minimum bar. We love our friends in the IEEE, but we look at that as more kind of the 5 to 7 year time frame. We're looking to get standards certified and out the door in the 1 to 3 year time frame. We've been successful in that, in both those timelines. The shorter ones are obviously a little bit more frenetic, but the way that we do that is we effectively look to have a minimum number of companies committing to deploy those before we get work started, and that way we know we actually have a market for those standards to begin. So we'll have a number of companies come in, they'll put together a concept. We run through similar gates where we'll start with effectively a market requirements document. So we follow the product development approach with a lot of companies. So we start with that market-based definition of what it is exactly that we're trying to achieve with the standard itself, and then we go through the process of a product definition and then into the actual technical specification. And that's generally the high-level view. Probably should be relatively known to everybody in this audience. But then we go through these different gates. We take the steps of putting together interop or plug fests where you're coming in and doing reference implementations of what that actually looks like. And then that way when we get to a certified, basically a certified specification, you already have products that have gone through and show up the same day as we launch the specification. You end up with products available for not for sale necessarily, but have gone through the certification process and are ready to be brought into the market.
Interesting. Okay. So as far as competition and versus cooperation, are they aware that they are both going through the process simultaneously, and they're propose alternate versions of the standard, and then you have to settle that out, or what?
So competition and cooperation, I have this term, I like to call it active management. So you need to create good antitrust barriers, or not barriers, but borders and guidelines for people to adhere to. And really, of course, you're trying to bring in all competitors, because the notion of what the standard is kind of the highest common denominator of what everybody wants to play with. And so trying to come up with enough that the products that end up in the market actually interoperate the way that consumers expect that they will interoperate. That's the goal. If you're just simply coming up with basic level functionality, that's not really where an interop standard, of course, is really that interesting for consumers, especially, but for the manufacturers themselves. So we do it through some of the ways in which we're structured, the way that we kind of have available processes, but it really comes down to the recruiting that takes place. The CSA, the Connectivity Standards Alliance, has a lot of device manufacturers, but we're fortunate that we have representation from every part of the ecosystem or the value chain, from silicon to storefront. And so by having all of those folks engaged, and again, back to what I call active management, making sure that everybody is participating, and it's not simply a place where you have something that is really developed by the chip side, but the storefront hasn't been involved. And so it's really a matter of ensuring that it is not just an R&D group, but that it is representing each part of the product lifecycle and the product development itself, so that everybody's engaged in that. That's where we get paid to try and make sure everybody's at the right table, but partnering very closely with all of our members in the alliance as well.
Awesome. Does everybody have any alternate versions of that where it doesn't actually work that way, and it does require some conflict resolution, or how does that all get settled out?
Yeah.
All right. Guess it is a lot like the IEEE then.
I mean, we're building the use cases, we're building standards to support service providers and eventually the end user themselves. So they're contribution driven. People are coming with the use cases and the best solutions. There will always be a straw ballot or a ballot process or whatever we call it inside our organization. But the goal is to solve a service provider need. And therefore, 90% of the time we'll agree on everything. It's always that last 10% that may take a little bit longer.
Yeah. I can just add, first of all, thank you for inviting the Wireless Broadband Alliance to be here today. So similar to what Tobin and Craig said, each of us in our organizations, we have our own processes and procedures. There is always a holistic goal that all the members coming together, many of them, they compete outside our meetings. But majority, they understand the common goal that they want to achieve, either to solve a service provider or an end customer gap, or even an enterprise customer type of solution. And of course, our alliances, at least in WBA, we have ways to somehow try to avoid friction and conflict between members that always raise when we are discussing different standards, different options. But I think that's why we need this type of organizations where there is an independent group of people that is managing all these standards and this technical work and try to drive the industry forward.
Yes, so in the Wi-Fi Alliance, we have a very stringent process, but we care to focus on the outcome of, the discussions and the forums and all of the, collaboration that goes inside the organization, and really be market focused. We have segments based, for the operators and service provider segment. We have different task groups that focus on automotive, IoT, and then the general, standard of Wi-Fi, the next generation of Wi-Fi. So we have this array of task groups, and all the companies that represent the ecosystem, they're all members of the Wi-Fi Alliance. We have over 900 members, and so the collaboration is very natural, but what we focus on is the outcome, and the outcome that we focus on is getting a Wi-Fi certified or Wi-Fi certification to the market that is relevant, and that that relates to the use cases in the various industries, and so we can better serve, all these unique and diverse markets.
Awesome.
Maybe I can say one more thing.
Sure.
You talked about conflict resolution, and at its core, standards development or certification or industry groups like us, that is effectively what we do, right? It is we manage the conflict. So you've heard described a lot of the processes for the mechanics of developing a specification, but each of our organizations have boards of directors and have to have linkages back into the organizations to the business decision makers, and that's where the boards fit in very nicely. But it is more than just the technical specification and the technical argument about whether or not something works across a platform. It comes down to also whether or not the industry is ready to standardize against that. And that business decision, for instance, we have Matter. It's supported by Google, Apple, Amazon, Samsung, LG, other major ecosystems. They've had all these organizations available to them for decades. It was only over the last 5 or 6 years where they were pushed enough by the need for harmonization in the smart home to decide, okay, we need to actually align on this. Which one are we going to go to? How is that going to match? Zigbee Alliance at that point was a great one, a good choice for a lot of reasons, but really the biggest driver was the business decision and the agreement and the conflict resolution that had to take place outside of the standard organization to do that, and then to bring that inside.
That's a great example. So let's say I wanted to create a standard on personal DRM for the customer, right? So that way they can ensure that we give them some sort of key infrastructure and anything that they're tracked on, the devices, their usage, that sort of thing, at any point in time it can be revoked, and people no longer have access to that data. They can't monetize it. How would that work with these backers? If that's a direct conflict to a potential revenue stream, do they already have the right to vote that down, or is that something that would just go through the debate process? Sorry, I know that's somewhat of a off the cuff.
No, I can share a little bit about the WBA processes. So yes, everything starts with a document that we call Terms of Reference, where there is a group of companies that they propose one work item. That work item then is exposed to the entire membership. Normally there is a pitch to the members, why it's important to do this work, what are the impact on the market, what is the market demand, what are the benefits for the entire community. Then the members will vote on that precise initiative. And then we have a set of rules. Okay, you need a certain level of contributors to vote yes. You need whatever number of people to lead the work, whatever number of people to contribute. And even on top of that, we have a final validation at the board level. So once it's approved by the members and we have the resources to do the work, okay, is that aligned with the overall board vision for the WBI work and the evolution of the alliance? So there is almost different steps that are taken care to make sure that that work item has somehow the agreement of the majority of the members and becomes a work item.
There you go. All right. Thanks. All right. So I think the last one was, today we heard about all the different innovation that's coming through. How do you guys keep up with all this? There's all sorts of crazy new items that have come out. And so, Craig, you want to take this one?
Well, the Wi-Fi Alliance supports open standards because with open standards, it allows companies like you all to innovate and bring these solutions to the market and better serve all these unique use cases that are out there. So, from that perspective, we are very committed to, delivering solutions, delivering certifications, that ultimately serve the market.
So from a broadband forum perspective, first of all, we're really lucky because there's such a big overlap of the membership in Purple and the membership in BBF. I think nearly every single speaker today is representing a company that's also a BBF member. So their contributions, anyone can contribute new work. As long as it has a backing of a number of other members, we can start that work. So there's alignment. I'm also grateful, and Shelley's been fantastic this year, that Purple are also an associate member of the BBF and vice versa. So there's commonality there. I think a key point here is that open source software should be at the creative edge. It should be pushing the boundaries of what is the right way to go, how as us as an industry can come together and push open source solutions out there that saves money, creates the customer as king type environment. Standards should be an anchor behind that to say, okay, I can now hang my coat with standards supporting the open source software, that I can go to RFI and make sure anyone that is doing purple and has supporting standards from all of our bodies, I can deploy a real solution out there with that. I don't have to keep doing an R&D resource testing every single vendor if there's a standard supporting the open source. And that's where we're going. So as long as that we are in time for the RFIs, not necessarily on the bleeding edge, we're doing our jobs from a standards body.
There you go. Awesome. So along those lines, are there projects or standards that you guys have created that have crossed all the different boundaries here?
So yeah, I mean, first of all, we build standards and we liaise with our other standards bodies. We don't sit as an island. We represent the skill sets that we have, you know, the best skills to develop the standards, but we also rely on other bodies to liaise and work with. So every single person here, the Broadband Forum will say, okay, if there's something in your wheelhouse, we want to let you know we're starting this work. Please help us contribute. What's your opinion? And we've done that a lot with WBA and Easy Mesh, and you quote our standards, we quote Easy Mesh, same for Wi-Fi Alliance. We want to improve with CSA, I'll be honest with you. You know, I'll put my hand up there. Let's improve that relationship. We're starting on TR181, the data modeling. We're starting Matter interfaces with that as well. So Matter would be part of the TR181 data model. And you don't want me to get me started. We've got so much going on. So I'll stop there.
Yeah, and I can give a good example that Maureen is here on my right. So the collaboration with WBI and Wi-Fi Alliance has been fantastic. So we have a collaboration agreement since 2009. We have regular meetings between the board directors of both alliances from time to time. Then we have regular meetings, and like Craig said, we expose our roadmap of activities to Wi-Fi Alliance members. Wi-Fi Alliance members does the same with WBI. And even on top of that, we have regular staff meetings where we talk into the details of the work, and we can explain in more privately, staff to staff, many of the work going on and the challenges that we see.
Cool.
And to add to that, so as I mentioned earlier, the Wi-Fi Alliance and WBA have had a long-standing relationship, and a perfect example of that is the outcome of one of our certifications, Passpoint, Wi-Fi Passpoint, and our specification, you know, the WBA was able to continue to extend that that certification even further. And Passpoint is an application that allows people to get onto the Wi-Fi networks without, you know, having to input manual credentials, so making the onboarding onto Wi-Fi networks so much easier. And so with that, again, we were able to, with collaboration with WBA, they were able to extend that into, you know, their portfolio of solutions and deliver, you know, an ultimate wider solution for the market.
Is there any other new standards that are about to come out that you guys want to announce or let everybody know to go take a look at?
I'll say that Matter 1.4 is launching soon. That will look a lot like a maintenance release in terms of some of the functionality, but there are improvements also in SVE. So Matter is one of the most important standards for the Alliance right now. There's an open source reference implementation in our GitHub. Feel free to download and play with that to your heart's content. And we believe that open source is the way to go for standards into the future. I didn't want to leave unanswered the point about working together. We have great relationships with the Wi-Fi Alliance, the Thread Group, and the Bluetooth SIG. Those are three core technologies to enable matter. We think that the service provider community is probably one of the most important communities to next really bring Matter to a consumer near you. You are in every home on the planet, and the notion of being able to have a consistent OS like Purple OS is really important to harmonizing all of those so that you can better manage systems and consumers can better bring products and devices onto that. We are a sensor and control device standards organization. So we used to be wireless sensor and control. Those three organizations are wireless, but there's also Ethernet. So the notion of how all these devices tie in together, the data models, there's a lot of complexity here through the 3+ dozen liaisons that our alliance manages, and we're looking forward to a couple more as described here, should help that harmonization and really reduce the complexity so that you can get to better innovation around AI and other applications that make life more interesting and useful to consumers.
Anybody else want to add anything? Or?
Yeah, I can add one more example. So for 2025, Wireless Broadband Alliance will work in an initiative called Enlargement of the Enterprise LAN into the Home, focusing on teleworkers. The main goal is to define a reference architecture for broadband operators to explore new use cases where the enterprise environment can be expanded to the home, and many of the security and features that we have on an enterprise LAN can become available from your home. So I think that's a quite interesting new initiative, and I invite all of you to consider to join and be part of these discussions.
Yeah, sounds interesting. All right, Maureen, go ahead.
Sure. Well, we released Wi-Fi Certified 7 earlier this year, and now we'll be having another release of Wi-Fi Certified 7 with some additional mandatory features and optional features. And in addition, we have two new peer-to-peer Wi-Fi certifications coming out for proximity ranging and also for Wi-Fi Direct 2 and other peer-to-peer technology. So stay tuned for those.
All right, guys, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. I think we're good.
Thank you.